Hello, I'm Andy, and today I want to talk about the Empire Wars game mode in Age of Empires 3. It's quite similar to Supremacy, but it's also quite different. First off, the basics. So, you start off with more villagers in Empire Wars, you start off with more resources, and you have an outpost wagon at the beginning of the game. You also get an Empire Wars wagon with each shipment, which can be used to build most buildings. Also, shipments arrive quite a bit faster than in Supremacy or in Treaty. These few changes change the game quite a lot. 95% of the normal Supremacy build orders are not viable in Empire Wars. Also, Commerce Age aggression doesn't work, because the wagons can build outposts. So once you scout that you will be attacked soon, you can just always tower up and outlast your opponent. Only very few selected Age 2 aggressions have a realistic chance of winning. For example, the India Flail elephant build order. Usually, your best bet is just to go straight to Fortress or do an Age 2 boom, or a mixture of both. In Fortress Age, you have the option to go for a falconet push or another big timing attack. Most of the time, I find it best, though, to just go to Industrial and go straight for a revolution play or a variant of a heavy cannon push. Or I just go to Industrial to amplify my boom. Okay, so now let's get into practical tips for this game mode. A few are Empire Wars specific and a few you can just use in general, which apply for basically all game modes. First off, the Empire Wars specific ones. For Empire Wars, you always want to age up to Age 2 as soon as you can. And usually you just gather your starting resources and go straight to Commerce Age, without even producing a villager in Age 1. Also on that note, oftentimes it's in my opinion not worth it to send an Age 1 shipment. So 3 villagers, oftentimes it's not worth it because you're so fast in Age 2 anyway, and there you can just send 5 villagers or 4 villagers or something. Don't take this as a strict rule though. Sometimes it's also okay to send an Age 1 shipment if your civilization allows it. So for example, the 1 hacienda wagon and 2 villagers is a shipment I would also consider to send. Just experiment around a bit and see what works and what doesn't work. For the next tip, this is kind of obvious, but you should always use your Empire Wars wagons. Even if you don't need the buildings right away, it is oftentimes worth it to just construct something. So for example the estates or the mills, because they give a lot of XP when you finish them, and so you speed up your shipment curve. Experience generating buildings, like a trading route, is oftentimes a good investment early on in the game, because shipments are so valuable in this game mode. If the map doesn't have a trading post, you can usually just make a market and get the upgrades earlier than usual. Now we finished the Empire Wars specific tips, let's remind us of some general rules about the game. Unit composition is also an integral part of Empire Wars. That means usually you have a main unit or a main bulk of units, so for example war wagons in this case, and you want to have a counter for the counter of the units. So you want to mix in to your war wagons, for example ulans, or you want to make cannons to counter the skirmishers. Map control is also an important part in Empire Wars. In Empire Wars you can secure the map control with your outposts, so with your extra Empire Wars wagons you can just put them on the entire map, and then you have a lot of vision so you see if you are being attacked, and it also helps with securing hunts and mines. Hunts and mines are still faster than mills or estates, even if you have them. So if you can get away with gathering them, you are getting an advantage. And the last tip I want to give is keep your town center and your villager idle time minimal. So you don't want your town center to do nothing, and you don't want to keep your villagers not working because they're not helping you, they're not giving you resources, and you will just get behind, and you should always avoid that. And now to the last mini tip I have to give you. So if you use hotkeys, it's a lot easier to do that kind of stuff. So if you have idle villagers on a hotkey, you can easily access, and if you have your idle town center on your hotkey, then you just get used to it and click them all the time, and so you will notice them very fast. So as I told you, most build orders of Supremacy don't work if you just convert in 1-to-1, so you have to adapt them. So I think a lot of build orders which work in Supremacy can be used to some degree also in Empire Wars. Especially those fast fortress build orders or the fast industrial build orders or some boomy builds. You can do them with small adaptations, and if you understand the basic concept behind a build order and it works in Supremacy, there's a very good chance it can work in Empire Wars 2. Except, of course, all the H2 aggression strategies, those most likely will not work. So, just to give you a few examples of what are some good build orders for me in Empire Wars, all fast industrial build orders, which also work for supremacy. So these prominently feature Germans or any revolt build order, for example with Ottoman, Spanish or Portuguese. Next up, you can use all kinds of boom build orders, which also work in supremacy. Those feature the Shrine Boom as the Japanese, the Britain House Manor Boom, or you could have some sort of Dutch or Portuguese boom. Those also typically work pretty well. If you want to go aggressive in this game mode, usually you would go for a fast fortress build order and you would use some sort of timing attack with a good mass. Typically this means a falconet push, for example, but there are also some other variants. But you probably need some artillery to siege down buildings, or you have some answer for some very defensive playstyles. Now let's talk about decks. So typically Empire Wars decks do have cards to help you boom, so for example villagers, and to advance fast or to get a lot of tempo, so these will usually be crate cards. Your Empire Wars deck will also contain some power unit cards, so to help you defend or to apply pressure. So to answer what are power unit cards, for me those fulfill two conditions. So it's the right unit type and it's a strong unit, so for example those could be skirmishers, those could be cannons, or those could be dragoons, or any good unit your civilization does have. And the second part of a power unit shipment, it has a very high value for its age. So typical values for H2 shipments are 700 combined resources. For H3 those are 1000 combined resources, and industrial usually are 1600 combined resources. And if you want to do some quick math on if a unit is a good shipment, you could just do it in your head. If you know how much experience the unit gives. So each unit gives 1 experience for each 10 resources it costs. So for example, a horse artillery will give 60 experience each if you build and if you kill it. That means if you have a shipment with 3 horse artillery, those are combined 180 experience, and that means they are typically worth around 1800 resources, and thus are a high value shipment for H4. So this is just one thing which helps me remember it, because then I only need to know a few numbers. So what is a good H2, 3 and 4 shipment, and I need to know how much experience a unit gives, and then I can see, okay, this unit is this and this much worth. And usually I know the amount of experience a unit gives because it pops up all the time if you kill it. So that's something I know. Fun fact, end. Okay, so end of excursion. Now back to decks. Good Empire Wars decks also have some gather upgrades and also some unit upgrades. And also the last part of your deck is some build or civilization specific card which enable you to do the thing you want to do with the build order. So all in all, I think Empire Wars is pretty fun. You can do some pretty wild and funny stuff, I think. A lot of build orders which I use basically work on the same concepts, so you can be creative and create your own ones if you want, or you could just use the one which I developed, which you can also find on my channel. And yeah, if you haven't, give Empire Wars a try. I think it's very fun, and it's just a bit different, but it's also kind of the same. So let me know what your favorite build order is, and thanks for watching, and see you guys around. Bye bye.